Hello YouTube, this is Dr. Murky, and I'm afraid that this video is going to be a serious one, um, because in the Times-Picayune, which is the paper in New Orleans, there's a story about the murder of two police officers, and as you can see, it says them cops didn't have to die on the front page. And they have the faces, pictures of some young men. The two at the bottom of the Smith brothers, and one of the Smith brothers is alleged to be the gunman behind the murder of the police officers, who are whose names are. Whose names are Brandon Nielsen and Jeremy Trish. And it had the shooting happened on the 16th of August in Laplace, which is my hometown. I don't reside there now, but that's where I grew up. So that's another reason why this story is fascinating to me, or of interest to myself. Now, based on the biographical information, the two Smith boys, they weren't as fortunate as myself and perhaps many of the folks watching this. And it says it says 10 years ago, when they were young, in their teens or preteens, it says their dad, Terry Smith, reportedly drove his then wife to a game preserve, pointed a pistol at her head and then his, and threatened to shoot them both if she left him. She later asked that the kidnapping charge against him be dropped. She filed for divorce in September. Their two sons, Brian and Derek, then 13 and 11, would start a paper trail of thieving, sometimes from their own mother, and doing drugs. So they didn't have the upbringing that many others folks had. What makes this group or this situation interesting, I guess, more relevant, is that they are in this, or they're associated with this group, the Sovereign Citizens, if I'm not mistaken, which is considered to be an anti-government group. And when you deal with government and the authorities being murdered, then philosophy has, of course, things to say about this, and that's what this video is about. Now I'm a big economics, I guess, fanboy. So you got James Buchanan. What Should Economists Do is a great book, and he says in the book, he says, essentially, the economist represents an ever-present Hobbesian realism, standing counter to the innocent romanticism of all Rousseau's. And Rousseau, I don't have time to get into him, but he's famous for saying, man is born free but is everywhere in chains. And if you want to know more about Rousseau, read A Conflict of Visions by Thomas Sowell. And he contrasts Hobbes with Rousseau and in different ideologies. Great book. Moving along now, if I could address an anti-government group, I would share this passage from Hobbes, because it always makes me think, and I think Hobbes is addressing folks who are upset with the government in this passage, and goes on to give one of my favorite quotes. Now he begins, a man may here object that the condition of subjects is very miserable, and commonly they that live under a monarch think it the fault of monarchy, and they that live under the government of democracy or other sovereign assembly attribute all the inconvenience to that form of commonwealth. Whereas the power in all forms, that they be perfect enough to protect them, is the same, not considering that the estate of man can never be without some incommodity or other, and that the greatest that in any form of government can possibly happen to the people in general is scarce sensible in respect of the miseries and horrible calamities that accompany a civil war, or that dissolute condition of massless men without subjection to laws and a course of power to tie their hands from rapine and revenge. Now, of course, this is all really controversial, but what should be emphasized is he admits that a man may object that the condition of government is very miserable, and he uses the word miserable. So he understands. I mean, people then understood. Folks are very upset with some of the things that the government is doing, but the question to ask is, like, compared to what? He says the estate of man can never be without some incommodity or other, and that just means that no matter what, if you're going to be alive, there's going to be life is going to be far from heavenly. There's paradise is not of this world. That's what I mean by Hobbesian realism. It's best to just take a moment and ask, is what I'm going through really that bad? Is what is being done to me really that bad? I mean, especially looking at history and seeing what some folks had to deal with. A lot of our problems seem really minuscule in comparison. Another economist is, who, of course, if you've seen my previous videos, I'm a big fan of Mises. And Mises talks about cooperation in the state, and he says what the individual must gain, what the individual must sacrifice for the sake of society, he is amply compensated by greater advantages. His sacrifice is only apparent and temporary. He forgoes a smaller gain in order to reap a greater one later. No reasonable being can fail to see this obvious fact. And then a couple pages down, he says, the adjustment of the individual to the requirements of social cooperation demands sacrifices. These are, it is true, only temporary and apparent sacrifices, as they are more than compensated for by the incomparably greater advantages which living within society provides. However, at the instant, in the very act of renouncing an expected enjoyment, they are painful, and it is not for everybody to realize their later benefits and to behave accordingly. So he's saying it's not for everybody to realize their later benefits and to behave accordingly, because in the instant, the act of renouncing an expected enjoyment is painful. So you see Hobbes, he's saying miserable, painful, but the point is peaceful cooperation. Peace is doesn't come natural to everybody. Non-violence doesn't seem to come natural to everybody, but it's painful to renounce the urge that is just I guess irresistible. But Mises says, we should resist. Of course, people know what they should do is doing it in the heat of the moment. That's a whole other thing. But anyway, I thought it was worth sharing. And uh, another place where Mises talks about the state in his great book. By the way, his great book Human Action. If you didn't see the title, is laid it down. He says, now I apologize for being so long-winded, but he says it is important to remember that government interference always means either violent action or the threat of such action. Government is in the last resort the employment of armed men, of policemen, gendarmes, soldiers, prison guards, and hangmen. The essential feature of government is the enforcement of its decrees by beating, killing, and imprisoning. Those who are asking for more government interference are asking ultimately for more compulsion and less freedom. Now, the other side is the next paragraph. He says to draw attention to this fact does not imply any reflection upon government activities. In stark reality, peaceful social cooperation is impossible if no provision is made for violent prevention and suppression of antisocial action on the part of refractory individuals and groups of individuals. One must take exception to the often repeated phrase that government is an evil, although a necessary and indispensable evil. What is required for the attainment of an end is aimed at is a means, the cost to be expended for its successful realization. It is an arbitrary value judgment to describe it as an evil in the moral connotation of the term. So he says it's an arbitrary value judgment to say this is right, this is wrong, this institution is right or bad or good. Their means and their ends, and the question is it worth it? Do the benefits exceed the cost? And what Mises is saying is that the government is the means, and social cooperation is the end. And these are the end. The end is what we would hope to find a consensus about, to find consensus over. Peaceful social cooperation. And that's really all I have to say about that. Sacrifices are going to be required, if not by law, then just by reality. I know that wasn't eloquent, but sacrifices are going to be made, are going to be required, because that's just the way the world works. That's just part of life. And this is a tough issue, and I just wanted to get a dialogue started. I think the economists have a lot of wisdom to share with us.